Okay, so we dive into our form section right here. So it looks like this, this whole part here, but it needs to look like this. It needs to look like this. Okay, so let's get started. The first thing that you are going to do is to give it a display also. Display of flex, okay, and then you also need to give it a flex direction of column. All right, okay, so you notice that so far we are duplicating display flex in so many places, so it's getting really inconvenient, maybe so to speak, but there are so many ways that you can actually avoid this, and one of the ways is actually simply creating a global class that you can use in your elements here. But we don't want to do that, because remember, we want to understand all these basics. Maybe later on we will refactor and have a global display flex class, and this is what you see in frameworks like Bootstrap or even Tailwind CSS. So for now, just keep on typing that you can understand this and that it can actually stick in. Okay, the same goes to like things like flex direction, things like maybe font weights, and so forth and so forth. But for now, just keep typing, okay? And that way, like later on when you get to actually use things like maybe global classes, it will be so easy for you. All right, okay, so we give it this part, we give it a flex of direction of column. The other thing we are going to style is the divider section. This section right here, it has 3 children, 1 2 3, so that means we need to give it a display of flex also. And because the direction is horizontal, no need to give it a flex direction. All right, so all we need to do is to now add this horizontal line. You remember this horizontal line that we have right here? These ones, you see, they share the same class. So the style that we give to this class, it will be applied to both these two divs, okay? So the first style that you are going to add is a minimum height. I mean height of maybe of 1 pixels, okay? And then the other thing we are going to do is to give them widths. We'll give them widths of 100%, all right? And then the other thing that we are going to do is to give them a background color, all right? And this background color will be gray. I believe it's 5, okay? So we save it, and they have that minimum height that we have given them, and then they also have the background color we assign them, okay? So the other thing we are going to add is now styles for this parent, and this parent in this case is the divider section, this one. So we gave it a display of flex, then we need to align the items, okay? Remember, align items, we align the items at the center. So you notice what just happened. Let's do this, comment this out. These ones, they will be collapsed so that they can occupy their height, and also they are going to be at the vertical center of the parent, okay, like that. Then the other thing we are going to do, we are going to justify the content at the center, all right, and then we are going to give it also a column gap, and the column gap we are going to go with is 24 pixels. So you see it's pushed, things are pushed now a bit. And then lastly, we are going to give it maybe a margin so that it's actually, you see here, there's a gap between this one and the bottom. We give it a margin bottom of 20 pixels, and that should be it. So that looks really nice so far, but then we need to also style this text right here. I recall us saying that we will actually capitalize it and give it different styles later on when we get to styling. So the time is here. Okay, so the first style that you are going to give it is a font family, okay? Font family of, it's a variable of system 1, and then the other thing is the color, and then it's also a variable of text color, color 3, okay? And then we are going to give it a text transform of uppercase, okay? And the other thing we are going to add, now that you have just seen the change here, so the other thing you are going to add is the font weight. Then we are going to give it a bolder font weight, okay? And then you notice they are light, thin, bold, and even you can have them as numbers, okay? Like 700 and so forth and so forth. It's like, for example, if you do this, you have autocomplete, okay? So for us, we go bolder, and then we give it a font size as well, and this font size maybe of 13 pixels, okay? So we save it, and we see it looks something like that, okay? All right, so let's continue over now to the fields part. So the fields part, as you guessed it, again, we start with the displays, and as I told you, don't mind typing, just keep typing for now, and all these things, they will pay off at some point, okay? So we say display of flex, And then the other things, flex direction of column, and then we give it a row gap of maybe 6 pixels. And with that, we see that happens. A gap is added to the field section. Okay. Then the other thing that we want to do is now the field wrappers. You remember that we had our fields. Yes, this one, which is this. Okay. Then we have field wrappers. These field wrappers, notice that once we apply the style to one, it will be propagated to all of them. First of all, it has a width of 100% so that it will occupy the whole horizontal space of its parent. Okay. And then it has a display of legs. Then it has align items at the center. Then we are going to give it a position of relative. Position relative means that the children inside it, even if they are positioned absolutely, they will not move past it, their parents' enclosure. Okay. And we will see that later on. So when we get to display either success or an error. Okay. Then we also have to give them a height, okay, a minimum height of maybe 44 pixels. So this one is this section right here. So let's give this maybe a background color and see how much space it has taken based on our styling. So we give it a maybe background color of that and we see how it appears. Okay, so that is good. So with our field wrapper, now we can actually target the individual, okay, the specific child elements of this wrapper. And the child element you are going to be targeting, first of all, is the input part, okay? So you notice this gap here. So what this gap means is that I want to target any child that is an input element. But if we do this greater than, you are going to say, I want to target a specific, okay, the first one. This is very specific, the first one. But this one, I'll be targeting any. And then we just say it will have a border color of 1 pixels. I believe it is gray, gray 5, okay? And then we give it a background color of gray 1. And then we proceed and give it a padding of 12 pixels vertically and 6 pixels horizontally, okay? Then we give it a border radius of maybe 2 pixels, all right? So based on this one, okay? And then we continue and we give it a width of maybe 100% and then position it absolute. So now one thing I want you to note is here is position relative as we said, but then this one is position absolute. So let's save this and you should see it behaves like that. So this is really interesting because if we do this, you notice what happens is that the input, because it's positioned absolutely and is given a width of 100, it overflows, okay? It overflows past its parent scope. So that's why we need position relative, okay? I believe that is clear. All right, then the other thing that we are going to style a bit right here, you see like how it appears right here is not the way it appears right here, okay? Let's investigate. So is the input, okay? Oh, so it's this part here. It's supposed to be border. Yeah, so it appears like that. Okay, so far so good. So we see that when we focus, and actually let's test something here. When we give it a focus, let's say maybe outline of maybe blue 1. You see, that's what it means when you say like the focus. Okay, so we can continue now with the other part, which is the instruction section. So write this part right here. This part right here. Okay, so our instructions, again, they are text. So if they are text, so all we are going to do is to simply give them a font family of system 1. And then the other thing that you are going to give it is a font size of maybe 12.5 pixels. And then text align of center. And then after that, we give it a color. Okay, so this color will be gray. It's maybe gray 4. Yeah, it's gray 4. Okay, so that is this part right here. Okay, but then you notice that this one is still displayed. So why is this displayed and yet we don't have text assigned to it? So if we come back here, you remember what we said about our username? So for this part right here, for the username error, we have to make sure that we don't display it by default. So it should be hidden. And for you to target an ID, we say hash, and then we say the ID, and then we give it a display of none. Okay, like that. So we can continue and style up now our links. You see the links that we have right here in our instructions part. And the instruction, it has a text, that is what we just styled, but then they also have hrefs. So for us to target hrefs, you actually guessed it right. We just do this, and then we do A, and then we do that, okay? And then we are going to give our hrefs a given color. We see the one that is closest is link 3. So we save it, and then you see it takes that color. Then these links that we have right here, we don't want them to have an underscore. They already have an underscore, okay? So we don't want the underscore. So we give text decoration of none, okay? So no underscores. And then we have to actually transform this text right here so that the first letter of each word will be capitalized. So we do text transform, capitalize it, okay? So by doing that, we get this, okay? All right, so that is really nice, and it looks really nice. So far, so good. The next part is our sign up button. We begin by giving it a background color of variable, and then it is blue one, okay? Then this one, it also has a width. You remember the way the behavior that was similar to the one for the login with Facebook? It will have a width of 100%, okay? And then it also has a padding, all right? The padding, it will be maybe 10 pixels on the vertical part, and no padding horizontally, okay? So you can do it that way. And then we give it a border radius of maybe, this can be a border radius of maybe 4 pixels. Let's have it as 4 pixels. And then we also give it a color for the text, will be white, okay? And then we give it a display. And then instead of actually having it like that, it will be variable, and then I believe we have white one, okay? And then we also have display now of flex, and then we just justify our content to the center, and then we give it font family of a variable system1, okay? All right, and then we give it a font weight, bold, and then the font size will be maybe, let's say 14 pixels, and then the opacity of 1. So opacity is a measure of how transparent this element will be, or this item will be. And then the other thing we are going to give it is a border of none. Then we save it, we have this, and it's actually taken so much shape so far, okay? All right, so why does this appear like different? It appears different because it has a different opacity, all right? And that means that we need to target the disabled behavior of this specific element. And for us to target an attribute or a property, all we need to do is to do this. We target the class for this element, but remember the sign up button itself, by default, it had a disabled property, this one. So for us to target the state of it being in a disabled fashion, all we need to do is to say disabled, and then we give that state a different property. So if we hover on this, you see that it's going to say element and then the class, but the state of this element is that it is still disabled. So that gives us the ability to style it, okay, and give it an opacity of maybe 0.7. And opacity, as I said before, is the transparency of the item itself. And then a background color, it will be variable, then blue one. And then we just need to add a cursor of default, okay? And then default is this one that you see, the normal pointer, okay? So that when it's actually in the active state, it's going to have a pointer. But then for our case, all you need to do is default, and then we emphasize it by saying important, all right? So that is really important, no pun intended. To emphasize styles, you need to give them important, okay? And the same here, I believe, because the next thing we are going to add is now on the hovering of this element, okay? If it is not disabled, it's going to have a different behavior and a different look. The first look is the color, and the color, it will be blue too, okay? And then it will also have a cursor of pointer, all right? Okay, so if we save this, we see that it has actually behaved as expected, but let's actually comment this out for now. Then we hover, you see it's taking the behavior of the hover part, okay? And then we comment it back in. So let's actually do this. We duplicate an actual use case and we say that, and then we hover on it. You see it's working as expected, and then we Control Z, and it's back to its own original state. So this one, we'll be changing it later on with JavaScript, so that because users, they can't change the CSS on their own. It will be up to us to change it with JavaScript. Okay. I believe that looks really nice. So we will go on to this part right here in the next part. Okay.